Greetings, food service family and friends. My name is Juan Martinez. I am principal and co-founder of Profitality Labor Guru Consulting Group. We are an industrial engineering application consultant that help food service brands drive a higher level of efficiency through the application of industrial engineering and ergonomics principles, resulting in a concept that has better unit economics and can grow faster. Today, I have invited my business partner, Ignacio Goris, to give some insights and thoughts on labor, on the topic on labor and how you should manage labor moving forward out of this pandemic. He's going to provide some insights on how people are doing it, also how they've been able to do it best in the last 5 to 6 years. Hi, Ignacio. How are you?
Hello. How are you?
Good, good.
Seems like I'm seeing more of you in quarantine than we do when, when we're actually out and about. So
that is true, but a lot less here, as you can see. Anyhow, but before we start again, you want to give a little bit of a background on yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm also an industrial engineer. I have a master's in operations research, and I've been working with multi-unit food service operations for the past 20 years.
You know, it's interesting. Labor's gone from before the pandemic, from a commodity that was scarce, and now it's very, very abundant. There's labor all over the place, of course, with the high unemployment rate. And something that's interesting in this evolution, the way clients are using brands have changed significantly. How they receive the food, how they package it, how it's delivered to the guests. So clearly, labor has changed in the last 6 weeks, and it's likely going to change dramatically moving forward. So let's start this discussion. I'm going to ask you a key questions. You know, how are concepts that are weathering the crisis better doing it?
Well, they're adapting. They are rethinking their labor model to include all these changes to the operating conditions.
So, such as off-premise versus on-premise, producing in batches and in different ways to get the food to the consumer. Is that part of what you're suggesting?
Well, it's the changes are comprehensive. So the first thing they need to do is to understand their baseline. It's like, where was labor before? And many concepts that we work with, that they have an activity-based labor system that we help them develop. They know that baseline, or they had that baseline to start with. So during this time of crisis, it's how do we adjust that baseline and modify the model for the new conditions? And there's a few steps that they're going to have to take, and some concepts have been taken, and it's different for every concept. The first one is, what things are they not even doing anymore? So someone that has a dining room and the dining room is closed, we're not going to set it up, we're not going to break it down. Someone that has a front counter and a drive-through, and it's only operating on drive-through, or with the front counter setting up registers, none of those things that happen on the front counter are going to happen under these new conditions. So those two things are changing. Then there are some activities that will still happen, but they're not going to happen as often. Examples of that, restrooms. You may have your employees using the restroom, so they're going to have to be maintained and clean, but you're not going to have 150 to 1,000 people just walking in and using the restrooms on a daily basis. And same thing with maintenance of many aspects of the restaurant. So cleaning doors, well, you don't have to clean the doors and the windows as often because, again, the traffic is much lower. Then what are things that get affected on a typical transaction or a typical guest? So how are orders coming in? On a traditional full service, you have your servers taking an order. On a counter service, you have people taking the order at a front counter. Well, that's not happening in the same way. Orders are coming in many cases digitally, whether it's through third party or through their own app or loyalty. So that changes the dynamic on how orders come in. Also, how are they packaging or the orders for delivery, and how are they delivering those orders is changing. Instead of on the old-fashioned online, you may have a shelf that people can pick it up. Now the packaging may be a little harder on making sure you identify the orders properly, and you may have to take them out to their cars, or you may have to take them out to the front door, which may make some transactions harder in the case of online.
So you talked about there basically the impact of off-premise, right? Being that everything is off-premise nowadays, whether it's off-premise to the drive-through, delivery, pickup. Sounds like that's a big adjustment, because the labor required to deliver an off-premise order is very different than the one that's on-premise.
Yeah, the off-premise bulk and percentage of the orders has been growing steadily from before this crisis, and then this has forced the concepts to go 100% off-premise or to go. And again, that it has a different spectrum, whether it's the orders are coming in online or they're coming in through a third-party aggregator, but they definitely have a different dynamic, and that dynamic, if done properly, it could be easier than handling your regular guests. It could be more efficient if done properly to be 100% online than to be 100% order live and deliver at the dining room, because you don't have to take orders, you don't have to cash people out, and you don't have to maintain dining rooms. Again, the sales are reduced, which is, it's not ideal, but for each individual guest, it might be easier to serve them under these new conditions.
Yeah. If anything, that's what you and I talked about, being a silver lining underneath all of this. So clearly a time of adjustment. So we're here now, and we're headed into the future. If you could put a crystal ball, what happens next as regulations, whether governmental or self-imposed, come to play, and how do concepts continue to change and evolve?
Well, the one thing that's going to be here to stay it's change. So the concept will continue to evolve, and they're going to have to rethink labor model on an ongoing basis. The crisis dumped a significant amount of changes in a single time, and as we're transitioning back into normalcy, they're going to continue to evolve. So some concepts are calling it to monitor and adapt what's going on as they reopen. So it's a concept I've been applying for years on just continuous improvement. So as things change, we're going to continue to change the guide, change the processes that are being used, and provide the restaurants or locations with the right amount of labor. And we've always preached that you need the right labor in the right place at the right time. This crisis has changed all those parameters. So it's a moving target, and you got to make sure that the concept adapt to these new targets, because how much labor you need, when you need it, and where you need it is changing constantly. So they need to stay on top of that.
Yeah, clearly it's a different philosophy to transform where we are to where we're headed, and this whole continuous improvement is it's a critical piece that brands need to embrace. So that's great. Thank you very much, Iggy. To the listeners, I want to keep this a little short side, but we hope that this video has provided you some insights on labor and what you need to do to manage your labor better. By the way, if you want an article that Iggy wrote in a industry publication, send us a request to info@profitality.com. Also, this is the third video we've done. The prior two other videos have been on top 10 drive-through. How do top 10 recommendations, insights on drive-through, and the other one, it's an off-premise. Again, both of those being critical considering where the business has gone to, and probably will continue to evolve to. So as we're closing, Iggy, any other thoughts that you'd like to share with the listeners?
I just want to thank the audience for taking the time to listen to our discussion. Hopefully you found it useful and it's going to help your concept adapt in these times of change. And again, feel free to contact us if you need more information. Juan gave you the email. You can also go to our website, profitality.com, or laborguru.com for more information on how we can help concepts on getting more efficient.
So to all of you, go out and manage labor optimally. At the end of the day, Iggy mentioned something, right labor in the right place at the right time. I'll add to that, doing the right things. The challenge is that the right things, where we're headed, will continue to change dramatically. But if you do that, then you'll provide the best customer service and protect profitability as you continue to embark on this ever-changing landscape that we're headed into. So follow continuous improvement mentality, a new transformational philosophy, and labor is a key piece to it that you need to manage to, as I said before, to drive best service and protect profitability. Thank you for listening, and go get your fair share of sales and manage labor along the way.
All right. Thank you, and stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.